Hello and welcome to our Street Soccer United podcast with me, Keith Mabbott, founder and CEO of the Street Soccer Foundation. On today's show, I have the amazing man himself, serial entrepreneur and CEO of jobsinkent.com, Mr. Paul Andrews. Paul, thank you very much for joining us on the Street Soccer United podcast. I've got to say, serial entrepreneur is an understatement for you. We wasn't quite sure actually what title to give you in the credits ahead of the interview, but one thing's for sure, those who know you, Paul, know you're immensely passionate about SME businesses and the Kent business community. And for most people know you as the CEO, as I say, at jobsinkent.com, the regional job board. But before we get into all of that, the first question I've got for you is, what was your upbringing like? Who was the teenage Paul Andrews?
Hi, Keith. Thank you for inviting me to be part of the podcast. I'm really excited about it. To try and answer your question, I was born in London, but my parents and my sister and I moved to Kent when I was 6 or 7 years old. As far as my upbringing was concerned, my mum and dad taught me to be very self-reliant. My dad, who was disabled from birth, still managed to run his own very successful business. And my mum had also been in business herself, so I guess I'm from a family of entrepreneurs. As a teenager, blimey, I kind of left school at 14, 15 years of age and started work. So my teenage years were basically working.
So a self-reliant young man who left school at 14, 15 and went straight into work. I know you've previously described your education background as you're being a graduate of the University of Life. So this really rings true. But it's already an important message you're giving there, Paul, to be self-reliant, having the ability to do things and make decisions by yourself. And with this, you also need strong self-belief. So perhaps on the work front then, what was your first job? How much did you make and how long did you last doing it?
My first job, I started a couple of months before my 15th birthday, and I worked at Turkey Mill, which was a paper mill. And my first job at the paper mill was as a rat smasher and bearing greaser. So quite an interesting thing. And what did I earn? £8, 10 and 6 a week for a 12-hour shift.
So 15 years old, working at a paper mill, £8 for the week for a 12-hour shift. Paul, I think you're showing your age a bit there, but but again, it just shows you the steely determination you obviously had to get out there and start earning and making your way. So coming to the person that you are today, people tend to say entrepreneurs are born rather than made. Would you agree with that? And when did you realise you were an entrepreneur?
I'm not really sure whether entrepreneurs are born or made. I can't really make up my mind on that. As far as I'm concerned, when I was younger, I never really thought of myself as an entrepreneur or entrepreneurial. I always wanted to work for myself. And then when I did, I kind of just went a bit mad from there and did lots of different things. I'm born or made. I don't think there's an answer to that. I think it could be either.
So you're on the fence with that one. It's fair. I mean, I think for my penny's worth, I wouldn't necessarily say people are born entrepreneurial. I think you tend to react in certain ways and manners to your environment and the people around you. I think when I consider my own upbringing, no one in my immediate family had ever run their own business. But like you, Paul, from a relatively young age, I think when I was sort of come out of football around sort of 2021, I knew I wanted to try and create my own path and do my own thing. But coming back to you, I think, what was it, around the year 2000 when you set up jobsinkent.com? What made you start the business in the first place and how did you actually get it going?
We actually launched Jobs in Kent in November 1999. I was working for another business at the time, and it was something that we started as a sideline to see if it would work. By 2004, it had become obvious that it would be, so we diversified it into its own company. It was an idea that I had when I saw other people starting job sites, but they were starting international job sites. And I just felt that most people work within 10, 15 miles where they live. So a regional site was really important. As it proved, that kind of worked.
I love that answer, Paul. The ability to see someone else's idea and having that thought on how it could be done better and then going out and doing it. I think often I talk with younger people about their ideas and they're worried whether to go into detail about it because they're fearful that, others will pinch their idea. I think, ideas are thought up all the time. It's always about the getting on and doing, the people and the execution. Anyway, coming to the execution, I'm going to attempt to list the titles and responsibilities that I believe you hold. Now, for those that are listening, get ready for this. Paul Andrews, he is currently the CEO of Fruit Bowl Media, Fruitworks, the owner of Kent Business Radio, director of Channel Radio, Radio Ashford, 10 by 10 Labs, Auto Media Group, and the Heating Portal. Obviously, jobsinkent.com as well. You're also president of the Kent Deaf Children's Society, a trustee for the Kenwood Trust, and you somehow find the time to lead on education and youth employment for the FSB. Paul, that makes me want to lie down, let alone carry out those duties. How do you find the time? Could you give us a genuine kind of true insight into a typical day of yours, kind of from when you get up and how you run through a typical day?
Wow, a typical day. I'm not sure that I actually have a typical day, but for the most part, I mean, it's mostly talking to people. You can do a lot of that by email and, and WhatsApp and things like that. So people talk to me about what's going on. The reason that I can do as many things as I do is I work with a great group of people. There are loads of people around me that do a lot of the heavy lifting, and basically I just have to talk to them, make a few decisions here and there. So, it's about working with the right people, I guess.
I think that's a very humble and generous answer from you there, Paul. But working with the right people is another good point that you raise. It's got to be people, isn't it? It's got to be people that make things happen or not. And I think surrounding yourself with people who are positive, those that are doers, and those who frankly just get things done is a real solid message there to take away. Now, before we come to the final question, out of all of what you do, one project that I'm personally a big supporter of and love is your creation of the Skills 3030 programme with the FSB. Could you tell us more about that, how it came about and why it's so important?
Yeah, back in 2015, I chaired an event that was talking about some stuff that was due to happen in the Dartford area of Kent. And during that, it was a big conference. And during that conference, a kind of argument broke out between lots of employers complaining that young people weren't ready for work and didn't have the right skills. And there were some head teachers in the audience that took umbrage at that. And I just felt that the problem lay in a lack of communication between the two sides. And I just felt that schools can't prepare people for the world of work if people in work don't tell schools what they want. So 3030 was born out of a desire to bring business people into schools to talk directly to students about the world of work and get the students to understand what they were looking at. But by the same token, it's also an opportunity for businesses to understand young people, to see the talent that's on display and to find out what young people want from the world of work. We've now had nearly 2,000 students go through that program, and it's a program of which I'm really, really proud. And we intend to keep going with that and do as much as we can to introduce students to businesses and businesses to students.
It's once again a situation where you, Paul, have seen a problem and found a solution, then gone and executed on it to deliver a service that provides an opportunity. And nearly 2,000 students coming through it. It's just fantastic, mate. I have to say, I mean, I'm really proud to have attended only a few sessions to support. I need to do more, and it's so great speaking with the students. And I certainly intend to come along and do some more over the coming year when we're all allowed to get out, obviously, when it's safe to do so. But brilliant, Paul. Thank you for that. Now, finally, to wrap the interview today, and honestly, it's always a pleasure speaking with you, Paul. So thank you again for your time today. The final question we always ask is, what's the best advice you've ever been given and by who?
The best advice I've ever been given was in my very first job on my very first day by a chap called Arthur Ells, who was the night shift foreman. And he said to me, listen, son, first learn your own job, then learn someone else's. And that piece of advice has stuck with me for over 50 years now. and it stood me in good stead for all of those 50 years. And it's the same advice I pass on to anybody else. First, learn your own job, then learn somebody else's.
What a brilliant answer, Paul. Arthur Els, first learn your own job, then learn someone else's. There you go. Get to become a master of what you do and then go and learn that of others. Today, you have listened to the remarkable Paul Andrews, a dear friend to me. Love what you do and what you're about, Paul. You're a true inspiration to me. Serial entrepreneur and CEO at jobsinkent.com. Please be sure to tune in again tomorrow for our next podcast interview. Right.